Air Marshal Ashutosh Dixit. We have Air Marshal Tiwari, the Vice Chief of Air Staff. We have the Vice Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Sanjay Valsayan, General Rahul Kumar, members of the academic institutions which are here in great strength, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. And it's a matter of great privilege to be here to address this August gathering at the Tri-Services Academia Tech Symposium on Defense Technologies. And today we have amongst us one of the finest minds of the country. And what gives me great happiness is right from the beginning, the way we are seated. Means if you look around, it's a healthy mix of academic institutions and military officers in uniform. The government had actually appointed me to carry out integration between the three services only. And even here, if you see, all the three services officers are distributed accordingly. They're not sitting in one. As so are the academia. It's a great hope, and hopefully in the seminar, this spirit continues and prevails. And what General Rahul Kumar said happens. So let me actually talk about warfare, our bread and butter, the uniformed people. So we can say that today there are a number of technologies which are competing with each other to revolutionize warfare, and warfare is becoming increasingly intelligent, digitized, transparent, and multi-domain. And it's at the cusp of a third revolution in military affair, to which I have named normally in most of my talks as kind of convergence warfare. And because it converges a kinetic with non-kinetic warfare, it converges physical with cognitive, it converges the three types of warfare, that's at the tactical level, operational level, and at the strategic level. It converges the first revolution in military affair, which was do more with maneuver warfare, and the second revolution in military affairs, which was something to do with net-centric warfare, along with this third revolution in military affair, which is a combination of many actually. It converges all domains into one. There's a convergence of most of the domains, old traditional ones and the new ones. It also converges time and space. This third revolution on military affairs, we are at the cusp of it, is because of development of a number of technologies actually coming in simultaneously. Otherwise, in past, there will be one technology which would revolutionize warfare, but now there are a number of them coming together. And mostly they are related to, say, sensor technologies and its proliferation, advances in long-range precision targeting, data center architecture, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. And all this, how are they impacting warfare, all these technologies, is a special subject by itself, and it will require different kind of a session. So I'll not talk about it. I'll talk about two fundamental things. First, I'll talk about the kind of battlefield we envisage will present itself to us in future. I think I'll dwell upon it. This, we all know that the battlefield is expanding. We had this traditional domains of warfare, land, maritime, and air. And of course, everyone's spoken about this new domains of warfare, whether it is cyber, whether it is space, electromagnetic spectrum, cognitive domain. So they're all there. But I think if you look at the traditional domains of the warfare, in it itself also, there are a number of changes that are taking place. You see, most of the wars till now have been fought on something like, I can call it a natural environment. There have been vast open spaces over which maneuver was taking place. No longer so. If you see at most of the conflicts, they are happening in a artificial environment. That's one created by man, because that's where actually humanity lives. So most of the conflicts are happening in a very complex urban terrain. Whether you look at Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, all towns of Syria, the major conflict took place, and not on those vast open spaces. Sudan, if you have a look at it. And to some extent, even the Ukraine conflict. So it's happening in a very complex urban kind of a terrain. And in sometimes, in this land warfare, subterranean part has also come in. And we must take it into account because northern adversaries are quite famous for actually this particular aspect of tunneling, etc. So we'll require different kind of technologies over here, something to do with through-wall radars, etc., for detection, etc. And so this will be complex, and communication technologies, understanding each other in a complex urban environment require a different kind of a technology. It will require different kind of concepts as far as warfare is concerned. You look at the maritime domain. Earlier it was mostly on the surface. Now, of course, we went subsurface with submarines sometime back in World War II. But today, with the number of technologies to detect this and to move around into subsurface, so underwater domain awareness is becoming a major challenge actually today's warfare. And probably we are transiting onto seabed warfare, because most of our communication cables, arteries, the world is connected through that. So this is where the maritime warfare is going. And if you look at the airspace, the traditional sovereign airspace was considered for till about 20 kilometers or so. But today we have near space, I'd say, because the number of weapon systems and technology are actually operating there. Whether it's those high altitude balloons with the Chinese head send, whether it is HAPS, whether hypersonic weapons. So all this technologies of fractional orbital systems, they are operating in altitudes which are, say, about 100 kilometers or so, or some even more. So this is merging this traditional airspace with this near space. And what's happening at the lower end of this airspace, that's about 500 meters and below, we see a proliferation of large number of these drones and loiter ammunition, which are crowding this airspace. So this is making warfare in air also highly complex and complicated. Space, as we all knew, was infinite, and but we don't talk about in the military about that infinite space. We talk about military space, and when you talk about military space, it's only about that orbital, Earth's orbital space. But over here also, if you see earlier, most of the things when we all started used to be placed on geostationary satellites, but the trend today is on LEO satellites and MEO satellites, even in highly elliptical orbits. So we may even talk about, say, lunar orbits tomorrow, or cislunar orbits maybe in times to come. So over here also, the space of a future battlefield may be expanding exponentially. Cyber, we all thought that cyber was largely related to internet, but look at it. So we're moving on to actually a digital domain, which is entirely different and maybe exponentially beyond what cyber was, our understanding of cyber was. And it's slowly transiting into perception management, and along with artificial intelligence and the cognitive domain. So over here also we find a huge expansion of this particular domain. Similarly, for the electromagnetic domain, again, we all thought that applications were from very low frequencies to high frequencies, and they were fundamental to this concept of very basic things of ESM, ECM, and ECCM, electronic countermeasures, countermeasures, etc. And we thought that electronic warfare was restricted to the terrestrial domain. No longer so. It's expanded up to space. It's also incorporated inside it not only a non-kinetic but also kinetic part of it, because at the higher end of this electromagnetic spectrum you can have this directed energy weapons which will produce kinetic kind of an effects. So this is the battlefield of the future, which mixes actually the physical with the metaphysical, and we have to be actually prepared accordingly. Let me now talk about the major instruments of warfare which actually are applied in this expanded domains which I just explained to you. And these two also are in a kind of a transition, and they're adapting to the various requirements of time. And if I were to simplify this, I think there are 5 instruments of application of military force. To simplify it, one could be, say, platforms. Platforms would be in terms of, say, aircraft, ships, submarines, tanks, etc. The second is weapons, actually, especially long-range and smart weapons. I'll talk about all this together. The third is combat units. Fourth is network and integration. And fifth is conceptual aspects of force application. Platforms, like I said earlier, fighter aircrafts, ships, submarines, etc. They are important to provide sustained presence and mobility, and their presence signals power and credibility. Platforms are, however, very, very costly. They require extensive R&D and incur high cost of maintenance. Weapons, especially these smart weapons, which were actually part of platforms at some point of time, now they seem to be breaking away from this platforms, and they're assuming their own importance. So probably have a BrahMos missile air-launched from an aircraft, which is a platform, going 400 kilometers away and striking precisely. So here is the challenge, which is something which is broken out from a platform, assuming its own importance, and they're creating a niche for themselves and are competing with platforms for their importance. So smart, lethal, long-range weapons are evolving faster with artificial intelligence, autonomy, as compared to platforms. And that's why I said, you can have an aircraft worth 1,000 crores, but a small missile of say 20 crores could destroy it. Similarly, a 10,000 crore ship or a carrier, but you require just a 100 crore missile to destroy it. So it's not that platforms will remain important, that's my view, but the debate would be to have an optimum mix of platforms and weapon systems. So there is a different kind of a paradigm, what's happening as far as technology is concerned. Third, of course, is combat units. Combat units integrate manpower along with these platforms and weapon systems to generate application of force. That's how you actually apply force, the use of those platforms and weapon systems. Seamless integration between these elements converts individual elements into cohesive and mission-capable formations. The fourth important thing which I mentioned was networks and integrations. There is a requirement for platforms and weapons must complement each other through integration and into war fighting. In modern warfare, the networks between platforms of the weapon is equally decisive as it enables a system of systems approach. So we require integration between weapons to a platform, between platform to a similar kind of a platform, between one platform and a different kind of a platform. So we require probably integration between tomorrow manned with unmanned kind of systems. We may require integration of all this with combat units, which I spoke about, between combat units of different kinds, and between, say, at the very extreme end, between Army, Navy, and Air Force. So you can find what we call as multi-domain operations in an integrated kind of an environment. Finally, all that gets combined together through concepts and doctrines, which form the foundation of basis for preparedness and fighting integrated battles. In future operations, these doctrines will be translated into decisive strategy and then applied on the battlefield, along with the other elements which I just spoke about. Today we have gathered here at the backdrop of Operation Sindoor, a recent campaign that tested the strength of our technological foundations in addition to the courage and grit of our soldiers. Operation Sindoor was the first major engagement of the Indian Armed Forces in an environment dominated by long-range vectors, precision-guided munitions, drones, standoff engagements. Operation Sindoor lays the benchmark for future conflicts. So it kind of indicative of what lies for us in the future. And it's time to take stock of all those 5 instruments of warfare which I spoke about, which are important for any force as to where we are. Platforms, as I said earlier, are expensive and the development is time-consuming. Today we have reliance on FOEMs, especially foreign OEMs, especially for fighter aircrafts, while most of the land and large amount of your maritime platforms are indigenous, with some technology inside it still yet to be mastered. Given a reliance on foreign OEMs, indigenous capability development is essential. We need to work out systems where we can work with foreign companies, foreign OEMs, in collaboration with them to get these modern platforms. And something like similar kind of a route is being followed if you read the newspapers as far as AMCA, as well as for development of aero engines. And next is weapons. Here on success of our effort is kind of a mixed bag. We need to develop and design own weapon systems we should be able to integrate it with not only domestic platforms but foreign platforms. That will be a challenge because most of these foreign OEMs are generally not ready to share kind of source codes, etc. with us. So that will require a lot of our thinking and agility and negotiations with them. But we need to do this. Networks, the third important thing. Network, I think there is huge amount of indigenous capability, and wherever we have been able to integrate every kind of an weapon system or platform into systems which are developed and networks which are developed by us, whether it is our IACCS nodes, whether it is Akash Tir. So all these systems are homegrown, or whether it is combat managed systems of ships, etc. So this part is reasonably good. As far as combat units are concerned, of course, the academic part may not be much involved in how to raise combat units, but we have to have combat units for old kind of warfare as well as new kind of warfare. Both are important. And of course, the next and the last is doctrines, through which we get into a proper strategy of military warfighting. So our forces have been at the forefront towards adopting various conceptual and doctrinal changes. We are giving robust impetus to the development of joint doctrines. And you must have seen recently, every 2-3 months we have taken out some kind of a joint doctrine which will help the three services to fight together. Let me now talk about the military and academia connect. The armed forces believe that both the military and academia need to work together. We have taken a number of initiatives to indicate to you all as to what will be our requirements in the future, and through our visualization of how warfare will happen in the future or how combat may happen. Glimpses of which were just told to you in the first part of my talk. Apart from this, you must be aware that we are conducting future warfare courses, and in which the first was only for armed forces officers, but in the second course, which of its only kind, we did involve the academia as well as the industry into it. We just finished with the Ran Samvad, that's conversations on war and warfare in Mao, and this again, it was not a samvad or dialogue only between armed forces officers. It involved the industry and also involved the academia. So in future, I also intend to conduct a two-sided exercise with the aim to execute a combined approach of the armed forces, academia and the industry. So in this two-sided exercise, not only you will have armed forces into red and blue fighting each other, but we'll also have DPSUs, some units of there, some labs of DRDO, and also some startups and some academic institutions, so that in real time we should be able to understand the problems of warfare and find solutions to it while the war is already on. So it's rather than finding a solution now. So that I think will be important. So we'll be doing this shortly, maybe next month. There are some more initiatives which we have undertaken. First, I think I'll talk about these policies. Several common policies are also being formulated to give direction to the three services on issues that are emergent and require an integrated outlook on warfighting. So we may have shortly, we'll come out with policies on defense space policy, defense cyber policy, military quantum mission, advanced materials, tri-services, wargaming and simulation, use of lethal and autonomous weapons, laws. So all this will release in times to come, which will give the academia as to how we are looking at these niche technologies in future. And of course, in the recently concluded Combined Commanders Conference, Honorable Prime Minister has agreed to a suggestion that member of the armed forces should be part of the national technology mission. So whether it is quantum or artificial intelligence, shortly that particular thing will be remedied. The next is TPCR, that's the Technology Perspective Capability Roadmap. That is a physical document which tells us to next 10 years what are the kind of capabilities in terms of platform, weapon systems, integration networks, what we are looking at. So this has been issued recently during the Ran Samvad, which I just spoke about at Mao, or it's about 15. So this is again a great idea which tells the industry and the academia as to how we are looking at things. The list is Integrated Capability Development Roadmap. So till now, the armed forces used to come out with the LTIPP, that's long-term integrated perspective plans, which were nothing but amalgamation of the requirement of the three services. But and mostly it would be some kind of a threat-based system. Now we are looking at this thing, challenges and threats in a different kind of a manner, and we are looking at capability-based development, a mix of capability and threat-based development. And after that, we'll just distribute those capabilities into the three services. So it's a different kind of an approach we are attempting than what is being done till now. Our own procedural things are also under change. We have recently issued DPM 2025, which was released on 14th of September on this month only, and Honorable Raksha Mantri, while releasing this particular document, had said that it's a blueprint to jointness, innovation and military preparedness. So it will simplify a number of things as far as Indianization is concerned. that should resolve issues, number of issues. Will also, which are not addressed over here, mostly these are related to, say, sustenance of equipment. But we are shortly going to revise our DAP 2025. Defense acquisition procedures are also under revision. And in this we are looking at number of revolutionary things. We will expect the media, the industry, etc. If you have some points for the new DAP, defense acquisition procedure, you may provide your inputs to this. In fact, some of the things like, we all know that in defense research and development, the failure or success rates are slightly less. It's not that, when you invest money into government money into some project, it's not necessary which will translate into success 100%. So that is always a problem. But I think even if we achieve 30-40% success, it should be considered as not considered as a failure, but as an investment for future development. So this will require a different kind of a mindset for the three services, including the finance people. But we will hopefully try and put such kind of things in place, including protection of IPR for people who develop that. So these are a couple of issues which we are looking at. Apart from this, we have taken a number of initiatives for funding of the academic funding, and both the MOD and the defense services are deeply involved in building ecosystems like centers of excellence, incubation hubs, and accelerators through academic funding. Incubation centers have been created in IITs, ISSC, and several DRDO labs have also taken such kind of initiatives for creating these centers of excellence. You are all aware of IDEX, that's Innovation for Defense Excellence Framework, which engages the startups and the young entrepreneurs. And this also has come out with the results are quite encouraging. And because the IDEX challenges aim to address critical technological gaps, already we have 404 projects worth 490 crores under IDEX scheme that are being progressed by the three services. And I'm happy to state that AON has been granted to 37 projects, and a total of 23 contracts have been signed as on 31st of May 2025. Besides this, the DRDO has a separate scheme which is known as the TDF, on which again they have engaged a number of academic institutions and startups. So this brings me to why actually we all have assembled over here. Our universities and research institutions are not merely temples of knowledge, they are incubators of innovation. You hold within your campuses the future designers, scientists and engineers who will decide what tools the soldiers of tomorrow will carry. So we have encouraging precedents. Several IITs and universities are working with DRDO and the armed forces on projects ranging from lightweight composites to artificial intelligence-based battlefield management systems. Startups born within campuses are now innovating in drones, cyber tools, and surveillance platforms. These examples prove that when academia is given a problem statement, when funding and mentorship is there, the results are outstanding. What we need now is scale, speed, and some kind of a commitment. Why are we emphasizing on all this? You know the current geopolitical environment, which is in a great amount of flux, and I think there is no other way than to build indigenous capabilities. And this is where we can talk about a whole-of-nation approach, or when I talked about right at the beginning, it's not only integration between the three services, but there's need to integrate, the academia into this whole ecosystem of developing technologies. We need to involve startups. We need to involve the defense industry. So, Indian Armed Forces have always placed the nation above all else. However, in this era, courage must be enforced by cutting-edge technology also. Our soldiers deserve nothing but the best. Operation Sindoor has shown us that it's possible when indigenous technology meets soldierly spirit. The advantage of indigenous technology is that you are able to maintain surprise. And you can have say, for example, a scalp missile, but its parameters are widely known to everyone. Or you can have a PL-15, but its parameters are widely known. But if you have something which is indigenous, and then of course there is an element of surprise, and surprise is a major battle-winning factor in war. So I will request you people to join us this national endeavor and mission. Let's resolve that in the years ahead, when the history looks back at 2025, It'll say that this was the time when India unlocked the full potential of its intellectual capital for national defense. Together, let's make India not only a global hub of knowledge, but also a global leader in niche and futuristic defense technologies. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. Jai Hind.